I'd worn that same look once. So I leaned forward, gentle as a breeze, and said, "You okay?" She hesitated, looked up, then nodded too quickly. "Yeah, just tired." I didn't press. I just reached into my bag, pulled out one of the cards I carried now, cards with the shelter's number, a hotline, and a short sentence on the back. "You are not alone, and this is not love." I slid it across the table. She didn't take it right away, but when she stepped off the train, I saw her slip it into her pocket, and for a second she looked back at me, not with fear, with something else. Recognition. Because sometimes we don't escape in one big leap. Sometimes it starts with a glance, a whisper, a card on a train. And I knew, whatever happened next for her, she had one more thing now than she had before. Hope. I used to think starting over meant wiping the slate clean. New city, new job, new name. But I didn't run. I rebuilt here. In the same town where I once hid bruises under scarves. In the same grocery store where I once counted every item like it might set him off. In the same apartment where I once memorized how to fall safely. Because it wasn't about forgetting. It was about reclaiming. I kept my last name. I repainted the walls. I rearranged the furniture, not to erase the past, but to show I owned this space now. I started teaching a self-defense class at the same community center where I first saw that flyer. Different mat, same spirit. At first, just 5 women came, then 10. Now we have a waiting list. They come in quiet, nervous, bent from the weight of things they don't say. But by the 3rd class, something shifts. They stand straighter, move with intention, eyes sharper, hearts lighter, because they're not just learning how to fight, they're remembering who they were before someone told them they were weak. And that's the kind of legacy I never imagined leaving. Not with fame, not with fortune, but with every woman who walks out of that class just a little less afraid. That is the life I've woven, thread by thread, scar by scar, from everything I thought had broken me. I didn't expect to see him again, not at the farmer's market, not 3 blocks from my home. But there he was, Ryan, gray around the temples now, a little thinner, still walking like the world owed him something. He saw me before I saw him, our eyes locked. And in that moment, I realized something. I wasn't afraid, not even a little. He gave a tight, bitter smile, like maybe he still believed he had some kind of hold over me. But I didn't look away. I didn't cross the street. I didn't shrink. I just stood there, calm, grounded, whole. He tried to speak. "Leah!" But I raised my hand, not in fear, in finality. "You don't get to say my name anymore." He blinked. For a moment I saw it, the recognition, the understanding that the version of me he broke was gone, and he would never touch the woman standing in front of him. He turned and walked away, and I turned back to my day, back to the tomatoes in my basket, back to the sun on my shoulders, back to the life I built without him. I didn't win that moment with fists. I won it with something much harder to earn. Peace. It was a year to the day. Not since the first hit, not since the last one, but since I finally said, "No more." I woke up early that morning. No alarm, no anxiety, just the quiet hush of peace wrapping itself around my home. I opened the windows, brewed tea, rolled out my mat in the sunlight, not for battle, not for defense, for joy. Every breath I took was mine, every stretch, every movement, a love letter to the body that carried me through hell and out of it. Later that day, the women from my self-defense class surprised me with a gift, a framed quote that now hangs above my front door. "You were never fragile. You were just waiting to remember your strength." We laughed. We cried. We danced barefoot in my living room. Not because our stories were the same, but because our freedom was. And that night, as I sat alone in the warm glow of my little home, I whispered one final truth to the universe. I am not what happened to me. I am what I chose to become after. Not a victim, not even a survivor, a warrior, a woman, a sanctuary. For myself, and for everyone still finding their way home. Strength is choosing not to break when the world tries to crush you. And more importantly, it's helping others rise once you've risen. After the court dismissed Ryan's motion, I received an email from a local shelter. They wanted me to speak, not just to survivors, but to high school girls. Girls just starting to learn what love looks like and what it should never feel like. I was terrified. But I said yes. The auditorium was packed. They expected 30 girls. 120 showed up. I stood behind the podium, took a breath, and said, "I'm not here to tell you to be strong. I'm here to tell you that you already are. That no matter who tries to silence you, your story matters. Your body is your own. And you never, ever deserve to be afraid of the person who says they love you." After the talk, a girl with braces and shaking hands came up to me and said, "My boyfriend shoved me into a wall last week. I thought, maybe that was normal." I didn't lecture her. I just handed her a card and hugged her, because that's how the chain breaks. One voice, one truth, one brave step at a time. There was no parade, no certificate, no trophy. But one evening, under a soft orange sky, I gave myself something no one else ever had: permission. I lit a single candle in the middle of my living room, placed a photo of myself at 16 beside it, the girl I was before Ryan, before fear, before silence. And I spoke to her, out loud. "I'm sorry they made you believe love had to hurt. I'm sorry you thought staying quiet meant staying safe. But you made it, and now I will never betray you again." I cried, not from sadness, but from release. Because there's a mourning that comes with healing. You grieve the years lost, the versions of yourself you had to shed to survive, the apologies you'll never hear. But after the tears, something else came. Peace. Real, bone-deep peace. I blew out the candle and stood in the quiet. No shouting, no footsteps approaching, no fear behind every corner, just silence and safety and the sound of my own breath, calm, steady, free. That night, I slept with my bedroom door open for the first time in years, because there was no longer anyone left to be afraid of. Life after survival isn't glamorous. There's no movie montage, no dramatic music swelling as you run through the rain. It's slower, quieter, but more real than anything I'd felt in years. I started doing simple things again, like going to the grocery store without planning 3 exit strategies, or leaving my phone face up on the table because no one was tracking me anymore. I picked up painting again, something I hadn't touched since college. Not to sell, not to impress, just to remember what it felt like to create something instead of surviving someone. One morning, while watering the tiny potted plant on my windowsill, I noticed a new sprout. I had nearly forgotten I planted anything. It was small, barely visible, but it was there, alive, like me, not blooming with fireworks, just growing. That's what strength really is. Not dramatic revenge, not breaking bones or shouting speeches, but showing up over and over again for yourself, every single day. Sometimes I still hear echoes of the past, a sound that makes me tense, a scent that pulls me back. But they don't hold power anymore, because now I have something stronger than fear. Peace I earned, and a life I built, with my own hands. It happened in line at the pharmacy. A man raised his voice behind me, angry about a prescription delay. His tone was sharp, sudden. A year ago, I would have jumped. I would have felt my body tighten, my breath stop, my thoughts spiral into danger, danger, danger. But this time, I turned around slowly, looked him straight in the eyes, and nothing, no panic, no shake, just calm observation. He wasn't yelling at me, and even if he had been, I knew how to stand my ground. That moment was small. No one clapped, no music played, but inside me, something whispered, "You made it." Later that night, I told Master Lu about it. She nodded like she already knew, then said, "That is the real black belt. I never earned one officially." She offered. I declined. Because I didn't need a belt to prove who I had become. The belt didn't stop the slap. But I did. And now, every time I walk into a space, I carry something stronger than a trophy. A truth etched into every breath. I am not afraid anymore. And when you've lived in fear for years, freedom isn't just a gift. It's a weapon, a shield, and a home. I was riding the train home from a small speaking event, window seat, sunset washing the city in gold, peaceful, ordinary. Across from me sat a young woman, early 20s maybe, fidgeting, eyes down, clutching her phone like it was keeping her alive. I recognized it instantly, the silence, the tension in her shoulders, the way she kept checking the time like she was scared to be late. The next morning, the house felt empty, not quiet, hollow, like something poisonous had finally been drained out, but left behind a space I didn't know how to fill. I walked from room to room, touched the cracked molding, opened the blinds he always kept shut, let sunlight pour in like it was holy water. The silence was no longer dangerous. It was unfamiliar, and unfamiliar was good. I filed a restraining order the next day. The officer who helped me recognized me from the police report and simply said, "You did the right thing." I didn't know how to respond, so I nodded, holding the papers like a sword I never wanted to carry again. The support group at the community center welcomed me like a sister. Some women hugged me, some cried. And Master Liu? She didn't say much, just handed me a new belt, not black, red. "Not for mastery," she said, "for rebirth." That night I sat on my porch under a quiet sky, sipping tea with both hands steady. No tremble, no fear, just me, sitting in my own home, safe. For the first time I realized something profound. I wasn't healing from a man. I was healing from the version of myself who thought I deserved him. And that girl? I forgave her, because she had survived just long enough to become me. It took weeks before I stopped checking over my shoulder, before I stopped flinching at sudden sounds, before I stopped whispering in my own home. But it happened, bit by bit. One morning, I walked past a mirror and realized something strange. I didn't recognize the woman looking back, not because I looked broken, but because I looked new. There were still dark circles under my eyes, sure, but there was something else too, something steadier, fire. I went to the courthouse and filed for divorce. The clerk asked for my legal name, and I hesitated for a moment before saying it out loud. Leah Monroe. My maiden name. The name I hadn't used in 6 years. The name that belonged to the girl who used to dream of becoming a writer, who painted her nails turquoise, who laughed without checking the volume. She wasn't gone. She'd just been waiting, waiting for the woman I was now to come and bring her back. That night, I pulled out my old laptop, dusted it off, and opened a blank document. I titled it, "Strike Without Sound: How I Survived Him and Found Me." And I wrote the first line, "This isn't a story about violence. It's a story about what happens when the violence stops, and you finally hear your own voice again." Writing became my ritual. Every morning, before the sun even peeked over the rooftops, I'd sit by the window with my tea and let the words pour out. Not just the pain, the power. I wrote about the fear, the isolation, the moments I thought I wouldn't make it. But I also wrote about the spark, the flyer on the bulletin board, Master Liu's quiet strength, the first time I blocked a hit, the first time I stood tall. It wasn't just a journal anymore. It was a testimony. One afternoon, I read a section aloud at the support group. When I looked up, 2 women were crying. One whispered, "That was me. That is me." And I realized this story wasn't just mine. It belonged to every woman who ever stayed too long, who ever mistook control for love, who ever kept quiet because she didn't think her voice mattered. Now, I wrote for her. I submitted an excerpt to a women's magazine under a pen name, LM Fire. It went viral in less than 48 hours. The comments were overwhelming. This saved me. I thought I was alone. I left because of this. I didn't need revenge on Ryan. I didn't need an apology from my past. I had a purpose, and it was louder than any slap had ever been. Just when I thought I was done looking over my shoulder, Ryan came back, not in person, but in court. He filed a motion, defamation. He claimed my writing was a public attack, that it hurt his reputation, that I had twisted the truth. I sat in that courtroom, listening to his lawyer call me vindictive, exaggerated, unstable. My hands didn't shake, because I was no longer the girl who had something to prove. I had facts. I had police reports, video recordings, medical photos, the 911 call, the witness statement from Master Lou. My lawyer didn't even need to speak much. The evidence did it for us. The judge dismissed the motion with a single line. What Ms. Monroe has written is not defamation. It is survival. Ryan stormed out, but this time he wasn't walking away from something he owned. He was walking away from something he lost. Me. Completely, permanently, irrevocably. Outside the courthouse, a young woman stopped me. I read your story, she said. I left him last week because of it. I hugged her, tightly, because she didn't know it yet, but she had already started writing her own story. And maybe one day, she'd pass the pen to someone else too. I used to think strength looked like fists, or shouting, or winning arguments. But it doesn't. Power. It happened on a Thursday. Ryan came home early. I wasn't expecting him. I was mid-pose, horse stance, arms balanced, breath controlled, in our tiny living room, training in secret like always. The door slammed. "What the hell is this?" he barked. I turned, frozen, not in fear this time, just measuring him. I had rehearsed this moment in my head for weeks, but not for it to happen now, not yet. "Are you doing karate or something?" he said, laughing. "You look ridiculous." He stepped closer, his eyes sharp, his voice venom. "You think you're tough now? What are you gonna do, kick me?" I stayed calm. I remembered Master Lou's words. "Do not strike to prove, strike to end." So I didn't strike. I stood up slowly, relaxed my shoulders, met his gaze with something he'd never seen in me before. Zero fear. That rattled him. He stepped back, just half an inch. But I saw it, that tiny retreat, a crack in the mask. "You've changed," he muttered. I smiled. Exactly. He didn't hit me that night. Instead, he retreated to his office, slamming the door like a child throwing a tantrum. And I returned to my stance, strong, still, ready, because the next time he tried to hurt me, he would meet someone he didn't recognize. The days that followed were quiet, too quiet. Ryan didn't yell, didn't insult, didn't touch me. He was watching me, like a lion confused why its prey had stopped running. He started asking questions he never used to care about. "Where do you go on Tuesdays again?" "What's in your bag?" "Why are you so calm lately?" I gave vague answers, soft smiles, no resistance, because I knew something he didn't. Control isn't power, self-control is. And I was no longer reacting, I was planning. I moved my journal to a safe place, buried inside a vent behind the dryer. I uploaded photos of my bruises from the first month, saved video recordings of his late-night rants on a secret cloud account. I had a trail now, proof. Not because I wanted revenge, but because if I had to leave, I'd leave smart. Master Lou noticed something too. "You are no longer training to escape," she said after class one night. "You're training for what comes after." I didn't answer her. I just bowed, because she was right. I wasn't surviving anymore. I was preparing, and deep down, I knew the silence wouldn't last. Men like Ryan don't let go when they start losing control. They lash out, and I was ready for the storm. It started with a glass, shattered on the floor. Dinner was 5 minutes late. That was all it took. Ryan stood over me, face red, chest heaving. "Do you think you're better than me now?" he snarled. "Walking around like you've got some kind of secret." I didn't answer, because I did, and it was about to save me. He grabbed my arm, hard. The same arm he bruised the first time he ever hit me, like he had a memory to protect. But this time, I didn't flinch. I shifted my weight, rotated my wrist, broke the grip. He blinked, stunned. What the? Then came the slap, harder than the first one, but my head didn't spin this time. My body knew what to do before my brain did. I dropped low, spun, elbow to ribs. He stumbled back, gasping. I don't want to hurt you, I said, my voice steady, but I won't let you hurt me ever again. He rushed me, sloppy, furious, predictable. I sidestepped, guided his weight past me, one controlled strike to the back of his knee. He hit the ground like a tree being cut from the base. I stood over him, calm, balanced. He stared up at me, not with rage, but with fear, because for the first time, he wasn't the bigger force in the room. I was, and I didn't need to shout to prove it. I had become the storm. Ryan lay on the floor, coughing, stunned, more shocked than hurt, and I stood there, steady in my stance, heart pounding not from fear, but from clarity, because this wasn't about beating him, it was about ending the cycle. He looked up at me, eyes wild, grasping for control. You're crazy, he spat. You attacked me. I didn't answer. I turned around, walked to the kitchen, picked up my phone, and called 911. He screamed behind me, stumbling to his feet, but I didn't even turn back. The operator asked for the emergency. I said clearly, "My name is Leah Carter. My husband just assaulted me. I defended myself. I am safe, but I want him gone, for good." She stayed on the line. The police arrived 10 minutes later. Ryan tried to twist the story, but the bruises on my arm, the video recordings I'd saved, the photos I'd taken weeks before, they all spoke for me. I didn't cry when they took him out in cuffs. I didn't scream. I didn't beg. I just exhaled, like I'd been holding my breath for years, because this wasn't revenge. This was closure. That night, I slept on the couch, wrapped in a blanket of silence, not the fearful kind, not the waiting for another hit kind, the peaceful kind, because for the first time, no one would be hitting me again. The first time he hit me, I didn't cry. I just stood there, frozen. It wasn't a punch. Not yet. It was a slap. Open palm, loud, sharp, stunning, like thunder across my cheek. His name was Ryan, my husband, my high school sweetheart, the man who once wrote me love letters in the margins of my math notebook. And now he stood over me, breathing hard, blaming me for a dinner that was too cold. "I didn't mean to," he said 2 minutes later. "You just make me so angry sometimes." And I said the words I swore I never would. "It's okay." But it wasn't. He brought me flowers the next morning, roses, red ones. I set them on fire in the kitchen sink after he left for work, because something in me was already burning, something that wasn't afraid, not anymore. That night I stared at myself in the mirror and whispered, "You're not going to live like this." I didn't know what I was going to do yet, but I knew one thing. The next time he touched me, I'd be ready. The next day I searched for help, not the kind that shows up in a squad car, the kind that teaches you how to survive quietly. I didn't want to run. I didn't want to hide. I wanted to be strong enough to stay, on my own terms. At the community center bulletin board, I found a flyer. Women's self-defense, beginner, cash only, no questions asked. Tuesdays and Thursdays, 7 p.m. Instructor, Master Liu. The name sounded like something out of a movie, but I wasn't looking for fantasy. I was looking for power. I showed up the next night. The place was small, just a basement with cracked mats and paper lanterns hanging from a rusty ceiling. But the energy inside? Electric. There were 6 other women, different ages, different faces, same eyes, tired, angry, awake. Master Liu was a tiny woman with silver-streaked hair and a scar that cut through her left eyebrow. She didn't smile. She just nodded at me and said, "Show me how you fall." I didn't know what that meant, until she gently swept my leg and I hit the mat hard. "Good," she said as I gasped. "Now." Show me how you get up. And that was the beginning. Twice a week I trained. I told Ryan I was joining a book club. He laughed. Don't waste your time, he said. You never finish anything. I smiled, because this time I would. I wasn't learning to fight him. I was learning to find myself. Master Lu didn't care about grace. She didn't care how fast you could punch or how high you could kick. She cared about one thing: control. Anyone can react, she said, circling me on the mat, but only the powerful choose how they react. Every class she taught us more than moves. She taught us rhythm. There was a rhythm to pain, a rhythm to fear, and if you could feel it coming, you could rewrite it. She showed me how to block, how to roll, how to breathe through the fear instead of drowning in it, and the more I trained, the more I changed. At home, I moved differently, slower, more aware. I started anticipating Ryan's moods like weather patterns. I could feel a storm coming in the way his keys hit the counter, the way he didn't look at me when he walked in, the silence before the rage. And I started journaling, not my feelings, but my strategy, how to shift my stance in the kitchen, where to stand so I wasn't cornered, how to turn a broom handle into a weapon if I needed to. It wasn't paranoia, it was survival. And somewhere along the way, the fear started shrinking. Not because he changed, because I did. I still flinched sometimes, but now I flinched and then stood tall. Because inside me something was sharpening, and one day it would be ready to cut through everything. It had been 5 weeks since the first slap. He hadn't hit me again, not physically, but he didn't need fists to do damage. He controlled the thermostat, the grocery list, the way I dressed. He mocked my laugh, interrupted my thoughts, belittled every ounce of joy I tried to hold on to. And then there were the silences, the long, suffocating pauses where he'd stare straight through me like I didn't exist. That's the thing about abuse. Sometimes the absence of violence is just another form of it. One night, he accused me of cheating. I had come home a few minutes late from training, hair damp, cheeks flushed. "Who is he?" he asked, voice ice cold. "There's no one," I said. He stared at me for a long time, then nodded. "You're lucky I still love you." And just like that, I realized something terrifying. He didn't love me. He loved owning me. That night, I stared at myself in the bathroom mirror. There was no bruise on my cheek, but there was one on my spirit. And for the first time, I didn't look away from it. I didn't try to cover it up. I just whispered to my reflection, "You're not broken. You're becoming dangerous." Because now I understood. Every insult he threw was another strike I could absorb, another lesson in resilience, another step towards something he could never predict.